Hello, my name is Jingonelli. Today we are going to be looking at entrepreneurship development. But before I begin off, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It will bring you some good luck in your forthcoming exams. So with entrepreneurship development, I'm going to be looking at a few definitions and also the question approach that may be asked on such questions. So make sure you're having where to note because some of the things are not in the PDF that I'm having. So I'll begin by the definition of who is an entrepreneur. So, with this definition, there's no clear definition trying to define who an entrepreneur is, but uh, to obtain a deeper insight into the subject matter, it is important to at least come up with a working definition. And in this attempt, historical perspective comes in. So we are going to be looking at some of the scholars that came up during the early days. We are having Richard, 1751. So Richard, what does he say? So what you should know about Richard, the very first recorded use of the word entrepreneurship in the form it is used today, it is attributed to Richard. So with this, during the early times, people still lived in closed communities that were isolated from other people. So the trade between communities was very limited and in many cases non-existent. So here, people who ventured to exploit in other communities were able to discover that commodities were badly needed in other communities. So what they did, they decided to be middlemen to facilitate this exchange of goods. So they were able to make large profits. So these were the early entrepreneurs which were being observed by Richard. So with that, this is very close to the brokers and the middlemen in today's world. However, today's world is open and liberalized, and information is rich enough for every community, making it very hard for one to be an entrepreneur or to make entrepreneurial profits in such a way. So moving to another scholar, we are having J. Bisse. He looks at an entrepreneur as a merchant. So what does he say? With this, he believes that an entrepreneur is one who shifts economic resources from an area of lower yield to an area of higher economic yield. So that's how he defines an entrepreneur. He looks at an entrepreneur as a merchant. During that time, adventurers were busy moving around the world, and during these tours they got goods from new lands which they brought back to Europe to sell at high profits and make abnormal profits. With that type of entrepreneurship, it is very close to today's trader or merchandise type of entrepreneur. And for today's world, it is open and liberalized. It is very hard nowadays to deploy such entrepreneurship because the transport is easily accessed, making it hard for today's merchants to make entrepreneurship profits from moving resources. So having looked at that, then we are having Knight of 1921, who defines an entrepreneur as a risk taker. So with this, he defines an entrepreneur as the organizer of uncertainty. That is, he recognizes and seizes opportunities that result from uncertainties. So with this, Knight looks at an entrepreneur as a risk taker. Then moving on to another scholar, that is Schumpeter. Now Schumpeter's definition of who an entrepreneur is. So looking at Schumpeter of 1934. So with Schumpeter, the nearest definition to today's entrepreneur is based on Schumpeter. So with this, he defines an entrepreneur as one who destroys the existing economic order by introducing new products and services. So that is how Schumpeter gets to view an entrepreneur. So now looking to another scholar, that is Kastner of 1973. So you should change this to 1973. It should not be 1967, it is 1973. He looks at an entrepreneur as an arbitrator, meaning to him an entrepreneur is someone who exploits information imperfections in order to bring an inherently disequilibrium market into eventual equilibrium in order to make a profit. He goes ahead and looks at an entrepreneur as being alert and he knows his or her environment. So there are still other definitions like the one of Carson of 1982. So this here should also be changed. It is 1982, not 1991. So this one, he looks at an entrepreneur as one who specializes in taking judgmental decisions about the coordination of scarce resources. Then we are having Peter Drucker. You can just put in brackets 1986. So now with this one, this is a person. He defines an entrepreneur as a person who always searches for change, respond to it, and exploit it as an opportunity. So that is with the management guru Peter Drucker. That's what he said about that. So having looked at that, what entrepreneurs do is what is called entrepreneurship. With entrepreneurship, many definitions of entrepreneurship have come up, but one of the best definitions of entrepreneurship is the one of Rostad, who defined entrepreneurship as a dynamic process of creating incremental wealth. So having looked at that, we can go and see how these questions are attempted when you're in the exam. So in the exam, they can ask you, describe the concept of an entrepreneurship and an entrepreneur as explained by Joseph Schumpeter, one of the scholars, 5 marks. So this is what you can do. You can begin by defining an entrepreneurship according to him, as is the process of creative destruction, meaning, now the keyword here is creative destruction. So meaning a process of creative destruction that initiates and sustains the process of development and helping to move the economy from one state of equilibrium to another. So according to him, you keep on explaining. This is another paragraph. According to him, a normal healthy economy was not one in equilibrium, but one that was constantly being disrupted by technological innovations. So this is how we viewed a normal healthy economy. Then we get to also talk about an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur, according to him, is an innovator. So entrepreneurs try to impose order and provide solutions to certain situations in which they normally operate. So they come up with new or improved solutions, e.g. new products, service, better ways of informing the market, new sources of materials, etc. So these are all points that you should take note of when you're answering that question. Then we go to question 2. Question 2, they may ask you with relevant examples, describe the term an entrepreneur as explained by any five of the following scholars. So with this question, you were given scholars and you had to at least state what they said about an entrepreneur. So with this, we are having Richard. He goes ahead to define entrepreneur as a middleman. He defines an entrepreneur as someone who gets between supplier and market and takes a profit by facilitating the exchange process. So examples, you can give any example that agro-produce dealers Then we go to another scholar, J. Bise, of 1800. So with this, he defines an entrepreneur as a merchant. With this, he further defines an entrepreneur as one who shifts economic resources from an area of low economic yield to an area of higher economic yield, thereby making profits. Then you can give any example you want. Then you can go to another scholar, that is Knight of 1921. He says an entrepreneur is a risk taker. So he defines an entrepreneur as the organizer of uncertainty. That is, they recognize and seize opportunities that result from uncertainties. So you can give any example relating to that. Then D, we are having Joseph Schumpeter of 1939. He says an entrepreneur is an innovator, and he defines an entrepreneur as one who destroys existing economic order by introducing new products and services, by creating new forms of organization, or by exploiting new raw materials. Then we are having Kadzner of 1973. He says an entrepreneur is the arbitrager. He defined an entrepreneur as one who exploits information imperfections in order to bring an inherently disequilibrium market into eventual equilibrium in order to make a profit. You can give any example that you want. So with that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We hope you have noted some few points.